How's it going, everyone? Bass here. So since the Packers have a lovely thing like a bye week this week, and we get to watch other playoff games with no worry in our mind, I figured I wanted to go over the All-Pro selections that were released today and kind of dig a little deeper with the advanced stats, advanced metrics, and whatnot, because the Packers had 6 total, 4 first team, 2 second team. So just want to dive into that a little bit more. So first I want to go over exactly who was on the first team All-Pro, just so we can kind of get a basis here. So obviously Aaron Rodgers was the quarterback. Then we have Derrick Henry at running back, Travis Kelce at tight end. Wide receivers, we have Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, and Tyreek Hill. Left tackle, David Bakhtiari. Right tackle, Jack Conklin. Left guard, Quentin Nelson. Right guard, Brandon Scherff. And at center, Corey Linsley. And on defense, edge rushers are TJ Watt, Myles Garrett. Interior, obviously Aaron Donald, DeForest Buckner. And then at linebackers, Fred Warner, Bobby Wagner, Darius Leonard. At corners, we have Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey. And at safeties, Tyrann Mathieu and Minkah Fitzpatrick and Budda Baker had a tie. And then of special teams, Jason Sanders had a wonderful year. Jake Bailey, Cordell Patterson, Gunnar Olszewski, George Odom, and Morgan Cox. So let's start with the MVP, Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, dude's going to win the MVP. Clear as day, been the best quarterback in the league, and that's no discredit to Patrick Mahomes. He also had a wonderful season. I just don't think it's an argument at this rate. Like, Aaron Rodgers is going to be the MVP. This year finished with 4,299 yards, 48 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, 9.6 adjusted yards per attempt, 70.7 completion percentage, a quarterback rating of 121.5, a QBR of 84.4, a 9.1 touchdown percentage, and then he was 94.5 under PFF. All those stats there, he was leading in first except for yards, but yards is a weird way to measure quarterback talent. Not to mention he also had 3 rushing touchdowns, so Aaron Rodgers accompanied for 51 touchdowns this year, which is astronomical. Keeping that short and simple, I don't think there's any argument that anyone else should have been first team All-Pro. I know Mahomes got 2 votes out of 50 and Allen got 2 votes out of 50. I don't see why. I mean, I get Mahomes. If he gets a couple votes, I just don't know who voted Josh Allen over Mahomes and Rodgers. Like, dude's a great player. He probably will be an MVP at some point soon, maybe in his career, but not this year. Then at receiver, we have the #1 wide receiver in the league, so this was no surprise. 115 receptions, 1,374 yards, 18 touchdowns. I mean, 18 touchdowns. That's ridiculous. The dude, he missed 2.5 games. He broke Sterling Sharp's reception record, touchdown record for the franchise. Guy balled out. Devontae Adams is a freak of nature, and it's so crazy to see how quickly he descended from his sophomore slump to now. When people wanted him cut back then to now. It's crazy. Devontae Adams is one of the quickest ascended players I can remember in recent history. He even has a case for Offensive Player of the Year. Ultimately, I think it's going to come down to be Derrick Henry. I think, considering Aaron Rodgers is going to get MVP, I just don't know if they're going to give Devontae Offensive Player of the Year as well. I think they're just going to give it to Derrick Henry because the dude has been a beast. Obviously, he went over 2,000 yards this year. Just been, in the last 20 games, he's had a ridiculous amount of yards. And I know it's just for this year, but Derrick Henry has been probably the Offensive Player of the Year. Him and Tay are pretty much almost tied for me, but I wouldn't be mad if Derrick Henry got it over him. So moving on to the O-line, David Bakhtiari got left tackles, first team All-Pro. He was the highest graded, or second highest graded tackle for PFF with a 91.8. That's only 0.1 away from the #1 graded left tackle, or tackle, which was Trent Williams. I mean, the dude had 420 snaps, 1 sack allowed. And it sucks so much that he had his knee injury and the Packers are going to be without him for the playoffs. You have to keep moving. Next man up. Billy Turner's been playing really solid at left tackle. Rick Wagner's been playing solid at right tackle. The whole rest of the line's been good. So, you know, and David Bakhtiari said, go win one for me. You know, the Packers, they got to win one for David Bakhtiari. And the last first team All-Pro went to Corey Linsley for the Packers at center. He was the #1 PFF graded center at an 89.9 rating. The guy played 13 games, so he missed a few games, but he allowed 3 pressures in 13 games. 3 pressures. I don't think there's any argument he's been the best center this year. Kelce had a good year, but I just don't think there's any argument. I would 100% expect him to be on the first team All-Pro, which he is. What's interesting about Linsley is he's an impending free agent, and the Packers are kind of in a shit pie right now with the cap, especially with the cap potentially going down as low as 175 with COVID and all of this for next year. So I'm going to be really interested to see if they're even able to retain him. I don't think they're going to be able to. I think their goal was 2 years ago to end up keeping one of their 3 best linemen, that being Bakhtiari, Bulaga, and Lindsley, and they ended up keeping Bakhtiari, which was the smart choice. I don't know what next year is going to look like if he isn't on the team. I don't know if Elton Jenkins is going to play center, and then maybe John Runyon comes in at the left guard spot. I'm not sure, but all I know is this Packers offensive line does have depth, and of course with the draft, you can draft more depth. So I'm not, it would hurt a lot to lose Corey Lindsley because he's been the complete anchor of that offensive line, but I don't think it's going to put a huge detriment to their offensive line and their team. Which is crazy to say because the dude's an all-pro center, and he's the best center in the league, and that's just speaking so much volume into how great the Packers offensive line has been this year when players had to leave for injury or whatnot. On to the 2 second-team selections. Firstly, with Za'Darius Smith. Decent year. Him and Mack both got second-team All-Pro. But you paid Za'Darius Smith $10 million less this year than Khalil Mack, and you didn't have to give up 2 first rounds, so I would say the Packers won that. He was only 12th in pressures in the league with 35. He was 4th in sacks with 12.5. I'd say it was a toss-up for second-team All-Pro between him and Trey Hendrickson. I think Z deserves it because all the snubs he's had, last year and whatnot. So I'm not saying he should be first team. I think second team's accurate for him. But also, like I said, if Trey Hendrickson got it, it would have been understandable to me. So here's one that a lot of people are probably annoyed about. Jaire Alexander, second team All-Pro, probably should have got first over Jalen Ramsey. It's hard to say. I think first team should have been Xavier Howard and Jaire. Xavier, 10 interceptions year, 10 pass breakups, just ridiculous year for Xavier. And as well as Jaire. They both had ridiculous years, and I'm not discrediting Jalen Ramsey. He also had a wonderful year. I just think Jaire is a little bit above him. So I think it should have been Howard and Jaire at the first team. My reason being is Jaire led the NFL in PFF rating with a 90.5. And I'm going to put up the opposing wide receiver list up on the screen here. This is just against number 1 wide receivers he was up against. And, if you look at this list, it's outstanding. You look in week 4, 0 receptions for Calvin Ridley. And I think that was after he was 3 games consecutively with 100 yards. You look at Mike Evans, 0 receptions. Will Fuller, 0 receptions. Justin Jefferson, 1 reception. Ty Hilton, 0. Alshon Jeffrey, 0, but Alshon's washed, but whatever. Marvin Jones, 1 reception. Robbie Anderson, 1 reception. A.J. Brown, 1 reception. Allen Robinson, 0 receptions, 0 targets against Jaire last week. Ridiculous. The guy was on his own island all year and played absolutely wonderful. And I know he only had 1 interception, but you have to realize if they don't throw to his side and throw to him as much, that makes sense. Xavier Howard had 10 interceptions. That means the quarterback has to target you a lot for you to get that many interceptions. I don't even think Jaire had a chance to get 10 interceptions because he locked down his guy so well. He locked down that side of the field so well. And that should speak volume. Jaire Alexander, only 35 catches on 563 pass coverage snaps. Quarterbacks averaged 4.9 yards per attempt against him. 13 pass breakups. Like I said, 1 interception. He had a sack. He also had a forced fumble. Quarterback passer rating when targeting him was 68.3. So quarterbacks had a horrible time going against Jaire this year. And like I said, Howard not far behind him in the PFF realm, 87.3. So only about three grade below. Like I said, Howard, 10 interceptions, 10 pass breakups. Just got a lot of volume thrown at him, so you got to look at that. I just would have loved to have seen Jaire over Ramsey. That's just, my personal opinion. I've been saying Jaire is arguably the best corner in the league. I think it's a toss-up between him and Howard, but I would give it to Jaire. So in terms of snubs, and I've been talking about him a lot, and I think his beginning of the year definitely ended up hurting him for AP's first All-Pro, or second team All-Pro, first team All-Pro, regardless. That's Adrian Amos. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful second half of the year. First half kind of shaky, and I was talking about that, but he was PFF All-Pro. He got their All-Pro team, and I think he should have been second team for APs. He was the second highest PFF safety with an 89.4, and then also PFF's first safety and coverage grade with a 91.5. So with the first team, like I said, Tyrann Mathieu, he did get a lot of interceptions. I just don't think he did much. I'm not a huge Mathieu fan. I think Amos is better than him. I'm not saying Amos should have been first team All-Pro. I would have kind of put him at that second team just because of his shaky start. But then you have, of course, Minkah Fitzpatrick, who had a wonderful year, and Budda Baker, who played pretty well. I think Jesse Bates should have been first team over pretty much all those guys. I mean, Jesse Bates had just a ridiculous year. The problem is the safety group's very saturated with a lot of talent, and there's a lot of good guys. Jesse Bates got second team, but so did Jamal Adams. I don't agree with putting Jamal Adams in the all-pro safeties because he basically played linebacker all year. I mean, the guy had 9.5 sacks. He was rushing the passer. He was, playing in the box. He was pretty much a box safety, a box linebacker. So, not to say he didn't have a good year. I think he started bad, but I think he definitely picked it up as the year went on. He seemingly became a big impact player for that Seattle defense. But I just think Amos deserved second team All-Pro, and Jesse Bates should have been first team. I know I always quote PFF stats, and if it means anything, Tyrann Mathieu was the 40th ranked safety for PFF. And then Minkah Fitzpatrick was a 79.5 rating, which is 10 points below Amos. So I wouldn't so much call this a snub, but I'd say he's getting close to it, and that's Elgton Jenkins. And I think if he hadn't played all around the line this year, which is no fault of his own, he really stepped up when he had to and played, center, tackle spots. He played pretty much everywhere on the offensive line, but I think he's definitely going to become an all-pro player. It wouldn't have surprised me if he snuck into the second team, but I wasn't expecting it. I think in the next couple of years we'll see him sneak into the second team and then first team. The second team was occupied by Joel Bitonio and Wyatt Teller. Wyatt Teller was the highest graded PFF guard, and Bitonio is a great player as well, so I'm not exactly mad at those guys being there. I don't think Elgton should have been in there over them. Like I said, if Elgton had played the entire year at left guard, maybe. We don't know because he had to move around so much, but I think once Elgton Jenkins gets at one position and plays it for the whole year, he has the capability of being first team All-Pro. So overall, I'm really happy. I mean, the Packers had 6 players on All-Pro. They're a 13-3 team, 4 first team, which is outstanding. I mean, they're all on offense, which is ridiculous because that's such a high capacity of All-Pro players, and they're all on offense. It just speaks volume of how good this Packers team actually was and how good Aaron Rodgers was and this offense was. But I basically just wanted to go over some more in-depth stats and some metrics to kind of compare and contrast with the other players that were first team and second team and who should have made it, who probably shouldn't have made it, and all this and whatnot. So that's going to about do it. Let's see what happens this weekend and who the Packers get matched up against. I'm extremely excited that the playoffs in the NFC run through Lambeau, as we all should be. On that note, catch you on the next one. Go Pack, go.